You probably grew up hearing about the moon as a place we once touched, but then walked away from. After the last Apollo mission in 1972 and the Soviet Union's Lunar 24 sample return in 1976, it's as if the world silently closed the chapter on our closest celestial neighbor. The flags were planted, the rocks were studied, and the moon seemed finished. There was no race left to win, no glory left to prove. The world turned its gaze elsewhere. But you know what's strange? For a place that still influences Earth's tides, moods, and myths, the moon never really let us go. It kept pulling at our imagination, whispering that we hadn't seen everything. And now, decades later, that whisper has turned into a roar. The moon is back at the center of global ambition, but this time it's not just about exploration. It's about control, resources, and power. You're living through the birth of the second lunar era. NASA is launching its Artemis missions. SpaceX is planning cargo flights. And China? China is quietly, methodically, and shockingly racing ahead, especially on the far side of the moon. There's something out there, something that's not only renewing interest, but possibly redefining why we went to the moon in the first place. And what China found might just disturb you, because it hints that the moon isn't what we thought it was. You might think China arrived late to the space race, but sometimes late arrivals study the game more carefully. While the US and Russia were busy with Mars dreams and space station politics, China was playing a quiet long game. And that game was the moon. China's lunar efforts began in earnest in the early 2000s under the China National Space Administration, CNSA. Unlike the flashy declarations of the Apollo era, CNSA worked with discipline, not drama. Its vision was simple: science first, but with strategy always in mind. The plan? Launch a series of increasingly advanced missions to orbit, land, explore, and eventually build infrastructure on the moon. It wasn't just about planting flags, it was about preparing for a long-term presence. Chang'e launched in 2007, China's first lunar orbiter. It mapped the moon in 3D, but more importantly, it confirmed something strange: signs of helium-3 in the soil, a potential fuel for future fusion energy. Then came Chang'e in 2010, with even sharper images and scouting missions for potential landings. In 2013, Chang'e made history. It soft-landed on the moon and deployed the U2 rover. This wasn't just a test, it was the first soft landing since 1976, and it came with real scientific goals. U2 carried an ultraviolet telescope, the first ever deployed on the moon, giving scientists a new way to study space. But the real game changer came in 2019. Chang'e didn't land on the moon's familiar face. It landed on the far side, a region humanity had never touched. And that's when the world started to pay serious attention. Now picture this: you're standing on the moon, but not the part facing Earth. You're in the deep, shadowed, mysterious far side, where Earth is never visible. That's where Chang'e landed, inside the Von Kerman crater, itself nested within the massive South Pole Aitken Basin, one of the oldest and deepest impact zones in the solar system. Landing here wasn't just hard, it was nearly impossible. Why? Because there's no direct communication with Earth from the far side. So China launched the Queqiao Relay satellite in advance and parked it at a precise gravitational point called Earth-Moon L2. This satellite served as the middleman, bouncing data from the rover to scientists back on Earth. Within hours of landing, the U2 rover rolled out and began exploring. And what it saw on the far side of the moon was completely different. The terrain wasn't just rougher, it was older. There were more craters, thicker crust, and minerals not seen on the near side. Scientists began realizing that the moon's two faces tell two different stories. The far side, which had been hidden from human eyes forever, was holding deeper secrets, untouched by past exploration. For decades, scientists had guessed that the far side might be more pure, more geologically primitive. But what U2 was revealing went beyond theory. This wasn't just the moon's other face, it was a different moon altogether. And that led to discoveries that weren't just scientific, they were unsettling. What would you do if you found a substance on the moon that could fuel the future of Earth? That's what China quietly stumbled upon and confirmed: helium-3. This rare isotope barely exists on Earth, but the moon's surface, constantly bombarded by solar wind, has soaked up significant quantities over billions of years. Helium-3 has the potential to power clean fusion energy, something many nations dream of but haven't achieved yet. The key point: helium-3 doesn't make weapons, only energy. That makes it strategically priceless. Chang'e 5, which returned lunar samples in 2020, found something even more incredible: a brand new mineral never seen before, named Changeite. Within this mineral were traces of helium-3. This wasn't science fiction, it was real. And it meant that China was the first nation to bring back helium-3 bearing lunar rock, and they did it from the far side. But perhaps even stranger was the mystery kill. In 2019, the Yutu-2 rover came across a shiny, glass-like substance in a small crater. It looked completely alien, not in the science fiction sense, but in the we have no idea what this is sense. Scientists later concluded it was probably lunar regolith that had melted into glass due to a meteoric impact. Still, that moment sparked massive global speculation. It wasn't just about chemistry, it was about what else might be buried in lunar soil. Then there was the lunar micro-ecosystem experiment, a tiny biosphere that carried seeds and insect eggs to the moon. A cotton seed actually sprouted inside that little canister, making it the first plant to ever grow on another world. It died after a few days due to extreme lunar night temperatures. But that one sprout, it was a symbolic crack in the wall. Life had reached the moon, and China made it happen. If you're fascinated by what lies beyond Earth, hit that subscribe button. There's more unfolding than the world is ready for. When China's far side landing made headlines, the world took notice, but not all reactions were the same. From a scientific standpoint, it was a massive leap forward. European researchers praised the precision of Chang'e 4 and the robustness of its findings. NASA scientists, though restrained by political limitations from directly cooperating with China, acknowledged the achievement with professional respect. This wasn't just a national win, it expanded the total human understanding of the moon. But while scientists were studying images and mineral compositions, something else began happening. Online forums, video platforms, and dark corners of the internet exploded with speculation. You might have seen some of it: theories about alien bases, hidden civilizations, or artificial structures on the far side of the moon. Some pointed to low-resolution anomalies in the terrain, claiming they looked too geometrical. One moment in particular fueled the fire. In late 2021, the Yutu-2 rover captured an image of a strange, cube-shaped object on the horizon. It was nicknamed the Mystery Hut. For weeks, conspiracy theorists ran wild. Was it a crashed spacecraft? A hidden outpost? But when the rover approached it weeks later, it turned out to be a boulder, just a rock. Still, that didn't stop the speculation. Because let's face it, when you explore the unexplored, people fill the gaps with their own fears and fascinations. What disturbed many wasn't the rock itself, but the sheer mystery of the far side. It had never been visited, never been explored, and now it was revealing things no one expected, including a new mineral, strange glassy substances, and massive structural differences from the near side. Whether or not aliens are involved, something is clear to you now: we never truly understood the moon, and that's why it's suddenly become the most strategic real estate in the sky. Here's the truth you won't hear in mainstream news: this isn't just science, it's power. What's happening on the moon today is a new version of the Cold War, but instead of nuclear missiles, the weapon is presence. Whoever builds first, and builds smart, will dominate a whole new domain. And China knows this. The far side of the moon offers several unique advantages. First, it's radio silent, meaning it's shielded from Earth's noisy signals. That makes it ideal for deep space observatories or potentially secret communications. Second, it's geologically older, so the chance of finding rare resources like helium-3 is much higher. Third, there are craters near the poles that are in permanent shadow, and that's where water ice is most likely to be found. Why does this matter? Because water is more than hydration. It's survival. It's fuel. When split into hydrogen and oxygen, it becomes rocket propellant. So if you can mine water on the moon, you've just created a launch pad to the rest of the solar system and saved trillions on Earth-based fuel launches. Recent findings confirm what many had only hoped. water ice isn't just at the poles. Chang'e 5 returned samples from a mid-latitude location and found hydroxyl-bound water in the minerals. That changes everything. It means more areas of the moon might be usable for habitation and mining than previously thought. Meanwhile, the United States is leading the Artemis program, aiming to return humans to the moon and establish a permanent base, with partners like the European Space Agency, Japan, and Canada. But here's the geopolitical tension. China isn't part of that coalition. Instead, it's building its own plan, the IRS, or International Lunar Research Station, with potential partners like Russia and others outside the U.S. sphere. That means there are now two parallel tracks being laid on the moon, and where they intersect could determine the future of space politics. If you're wondering what's coming next, buckle in, because the timeline is accelerating fast. In 2024, China plans to launch Chang'e 6, a mission designed to return samples from the moon's far side. If successful, it will be the first time humanity holds physical material from a region of the moon never touched by human hands or probes before. Chang'e 7 and 8 are next. These missions, slated for the late 2020s, will explore the lunar South Pole, a region that has captured the attention of every spacefaring nation. The goal? Find water ice, test 3D printing using lunar materials, and lay the groundwork for a robotic infrastructure that could one day support astronauts. Think solar arrays, communication towers, all built using materials found on-site. By the early 2030s, China hopes to have a functioning lunar research base. Manned missions are being planned, and unlike past endeavors, this one is open to international partners, just not those aligned with U.S. space leadership. This division to moon camps is becoming more obvious by the year. NASA's Artemis program, meanwhile, is aiming for its first crewed lunar landing after 2025. Their target, the solar-lit ridges near the South Pole, where light is constant and water is near. It's a smart strategy. You need power and resources. Artemis will send cargo, habitats, and science equipment ahead of humans, preparing for a long-term presence, not just another flag-planting moment. But there's one problem you should keep in mind. The law isn't ready for this. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty forbids any country from owning land on the moon or any celestial body, but it says nothing about resource exploitation. If China mines helium-3 or NASA extracts water, who controls it? Who profits? And who gets to say when someone else has gone too far? We're entering a phase where international law is playing catch-up to interplanetary ambition. And unless global cooperation wins out, you could be witnessing the start of a quiet lunar standoff. So, where does this leave you? You're watching history repeat itself, but with a twist. The moon is no longer a symbol of victory. It's becoming a foundation for something permanent. And unlike the 1960s, this isn't just about flags or pride. It's about survival, energy, and the future of civilization beyond Earth. The discoveries coming from the far side, minerals like Changeite, the presence of helium-3, glassy impact materials, and hints of water where no one expected it, they all tell the same story. The moon still has secrets, and those secrets have the power to reshape Earth's economy, energy systems, and geopolitical balance. Whether you believe the moon holds alien artifacts, ancient messages, or simply valuable resources, one thing is now certain. The world's superpowers believe it's worth racing for. And where there's a race, there's always a risk of conflict, of secrecy, or of breakthrough. The far side, once hidden, is now center stage. And you are living in the moment where its secrets are finally coming to light. Will we use them to unite or to compete? Only time and the next few missions will tell. If you're fascinated by the truth hidden in plain sight, from the moon's dark side to Earth's next energy revolution, make sure to subscribe, because this channel brings you closer to what they don't always want you to see.